local government energy audits to Mr. Karifi because I met him at the league, and I have your town audit, and I sent them to Paul just so he would have them in order to know what you can do with it, because it's the first step in a state program called ESIP. And I am listening to all this. I just wanted to get a feel for the town, and also there's an idea for the streetlights.
Okay.
You guys can approach JCP&L and ask them to buy out the streetlights. And then you can put platform hangers on each streetlight pole that actually can communicate with you. You go to your iPad and you see which light is out. This is not a
Can you leave your information just in case
I
if you have
can,
any
I
questions?
can. I really did not plan on coming up here, but
You could just sign in.
glad
Just
you
your,
did.
yeah, just your name and phone number
You know,
if you
it's hard
could.
to believe that they don't have some more technologically.
He looked at me
you know,
like
you would
I was
think.
asking for a house on the moon.
Yeah,
when
that's what I
suggested
would
that.
think. I mean, it seems odd in this time that they couldn't have something more.
you guys are using the Mrs. McGillicuddy plan.
Yeah.
Somebody sees it and you call in and
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems crazy.
better.
Yeah.
Totally.
Just to play devil's advocate for a minute, I've read someplace that JCP&L had 1,400 poles down in their area and 38 miles of cable to run. That's a pretty large number
As a result of the storm.
as a result of
Right.
the storm.
So, and I'm trying, and as I said earlier, I'm trying to balance not being too critical of them because they are clearly working with
Yeah.
things that are greater
That's why I
priorities.
thought I would just mention that, just to put it in perspective.
Right.
They had a big workload on their
Right.
backs. Could they have done it better? I'm
But
sure.
the
I'm
streetlight
sure, but
concerns predate the storm.
absolutely.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Some additional.
JCP&L is,
yeah,
I'm so
Go ahead.
sorry.
I was going to say some additional information that I found out from the old storms were, remember that JCP&L was bought out by First Energy.
Exactly.
First Energy, yeah, I do my homework, I really do.
That's
and
exactly what I was just going to
Yes,
say.
yeah.
What?
And First
Okay.
Energy, I'm going to inform you that JCP&L was a cash-rich entity. When First Energy came in, they decided that the pole quality of, say, I don't know which way it goes, there's a pole quality of 1 through 5, and decided that the lesser quality pole would be suffice. So that's why when we had the storm with the wind under the Sandy or whichever one it was, they broke from the top. It was because of the quality of the pole that they were not investing in the money that they had, that they took from, that's one thing. Go ahead.
Investor-owned utilities are each striving to hit their earnings guidance for Wall Street. That's the bottom line.
And that's what needs to be said. And I found that out because Madison has its own electric, utility. And this Ray Cody, who is the manager there, gave me that information, and it was proven to be right dead on.
Well, I think one of the other problems too is they don't really invest in infrastructure.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and
That's
this is the infrastructure problem. They haven't been cutting the trees back as much either. So, there's two other issues.
When
that-
utilities invest in infrastructure, it goes into something that's called rate base, which means your rates go up.
Right.
So that's between the utilities and the Board of Public Utilities. And they file rate cases, and that's how all that's determined. It's a very scientific calculation. I mean, that was my first job out of MBA school, was a rate analyst, and that's what I did, prepare spreadsheets for the utilities in Washington, D.C. to go to rate cases and make rate increases. So utilities really do honestly try to improve a lot of their infrastructure, but they have to balance that with the fact that it's going to increase rates. And they're going to get yelled at either way. So, but the bottom line is they have to make their earnings guidance. And it is make it a little bit more difficult with being owned by First Energy.
Yes, I realize that. The other part of the thing that you've all touched upon is that when something goes down in your neighborhood, everybody should call. Because initially, again, when we had these horrific storms, I was in Little Mendham, but I had time to do some homework, and I found out, you mean there's not like a big grid on the wall that shows all the lights going out? And they said, absolutely not. If we were one neighborhood and we don't all call, they don't feel that
Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm correct on that. Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone should call, and you shouldn't feel like you don't have a voice. You're absolutely right. And also, everyone should file a complaint with the Board of Public Utilities or write to them or talk to them because they really can do something. It takes time, it's a bureaucracy, but that's the way to go.
Thank you.
Actually, just the threat that you're going to call the board gets their attention.
You might as well call the board, though.
Yeah, well, calling the board is red tape for them. They would, if you talk to any manager, they would rather not get involved with the BPU, and they usually jump quickly when you threaten to go to the board.
This is true. This is true.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay, see no one else come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion?
Second, Grignani.
Okay, motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mrs. Grignani. Roll call. Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Mrs. Grignani,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Okay, if everyone could take a look at the ordinances. Status of adopted ordinances for introduction and second reading. Any questions? Okay, non-consent agenda. We don't have anything listed right now. We'll go to consent agenda.
At this time, I just want to acknowledge Mike's statement that it will be moved. The resolution pertaining to marijuana will be moved from the consent agenda to the non-consent agenda at next meeting for open discussion by the council members.
Yes, which
Yes.
is number 3.
Yes, we want to move the,
Can we also move resolution number 4, please, to the non-consent agenda?
Okay, just want to acknowledge for the record that resolution number 4 pertaining to public utilities to investigate and hold hearings on how Jersey Central Power and Light responded to the recent storms will be moved from the consent agenda to the non-consent agenda for the next meeting to be discussed by the council members.
Okay, Council
Mr.
President, I can read the,
Yes, go ahead.
all right. Let me just preface, before I read the resolution. Back in the 1970s, when I was on the school board in Parsippany, I co-founded the Drug and Alcohol Abuse Council with Marvin Gannick, who was a registered pharmacist, because we were concerned about drugs in our school system. In fact, we closed the campus to kids wandering around outside of school properties at that point in time. I was its first president for 15 years. And after a couple of years, the state came out with grants for municipal alliance committees. So we changed the name to Municipal Alliance Committee so we could apply for grants, and we've been doing that ever since. We far exceeded their requirements to call ourselves a Municipal Alliance Committee, and that committee still goes on today. In fact, I've served on it several times over the last 30 years. But our concern was the young people. And that's also my concern with marijuana. Once it becomes a recreational item, then it's going to be available in households just like liquor is. The difference between marijuana and liquor is water soluble. Even if you get drunk, it leaves your system within 7 hours. It's all gone. But marijuana is fat soluble. It stays in your system for 7 or 8 days, maybe longer. And when you smoke a second one and a third one, the THC collectively builds up in your body, and it can actually damage the reproductive eggs in females. They have one set of eggs that last them a lifetime, and that can be damaged if they smoke enough where the THC builds up in their body too much. So I just wanted to preface that I know something about it. I've been involved with it, and I was president of the Municipal Alliance Committee for 15 years. Okay, resolution of the Township Council of Parsippany-Troy Hills Township expressing its opposition to proposed legislation to permit the recreational use of marijuana in the state of New Jersey. Whereas recent news stories have indicated that the governor and the state of New Jersey will move to legalize recreational marijuana use within its first 100 days in office. And whereas the United States of America outlaws recreational cannabis pursuant to the Controlled Substance Act 21 U.S.C. Section 811. And whereas only 8 states and the District of Columbia have legalized recreational marijuana. And whereas Colorado, one of the states that legalized recreational marijuana, has seen an increase in documented traffic deaths involving drivers that had used marijuana. In 2013, the year before marijuana was fully legalized in Colorado, there were 55 documented traffic deaths. The number in 2016 was 125. And whereas in 2016, the Rocky Mountain High Density Drug Trafficking Area, they have the acronym RMHDDTA, annual report, shows that the number of medical marijuana centers in Colorado is greater than the number of Starbucks coffee shops, and the number of recreational marijuana outlets is greater than the number of McDonald's restaurants. And whereas the RMHDDTA report also demonstrates that marijuana use among Colorado teens aged 12 to 17 is 74% above the national average. And whereas medical marijuana is generally carefully controlled for the amount of delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, generally referred to as THC, recreational marijuana, on the other hand, is specifically designed to have as much THC as possible. And whereas the THC is known to impair physical function in the user, including reaction time while operating the vehicle and the user's ability to perceive danger. And whereas New Jersey utilizes drug recognition experts to determine whether someone is under the influence of drug, including marijuana, when operating a motor vehicle, and there is no current objective standard for operating under the influence of drugs like marijuana, as compared to standards established for driving while intoxicated, to 0.08%. And whereas the enforcement of operating motor vehicles under the influence of drugs, such as marijuana, is very difficult, and whereas many health professionals consider marijuana a gateway drug, and whereas the opioid epidemic is well known to residents of the County of Morris and the state of New Jersey, even though opiates are currently legal and available by prescription, and has not been controlled, and in fact has become an epidemic. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills that it opposes legislation that would permit the recreational use of marijuana in the state of New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the Parsippany Township Clerk shall forward a certified true copy of this resolution to the Governor of the State of New Jersey, Lieutenant Governor of the State of New Jersey, the members of the Morris County Legislative Delegation, the members of the Morris County Board of Chosen Freeholders, and the Mayor and Council of all municipalities within the County of Morris. So as you can see, a fair amount of research has gone into preparing this. It's not willy-nilly. Thank you, Council President.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to closed session.
I have a question on number 17 of work on Grafton Park.
Okay.
That we are going to be rescinding the contract, and we are rejecting all remaining bids. Where is that park located, please?
That's in Sedgefield.
It is in Sedgefield.
Yes.
We were there at the ribbon cutting.
That's, yeah, or is there a reason that we're rescinding all remaining bids? This project is not going to be going forward?
It's going to be under review. We need
Yeah,
to,
it's
Okay,
okay. And I'll have more information, I'll give you more detail.
thank you,
at-
thank you. All right.
All right, closed session.
Okay.
That's me. Alright. Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act PL 1975, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss litigation Wildlife Preserves, Inc., and whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting. Motion to adjourn into closed session by myself.
Second, Grignani.
Motion made by Mrs. Peterson, seconded by Mrs. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
At this point in time, we will adjourn into closed session. I don't believe we anticipate any action. All right, we are now adjourned into closed session.
We're
We're back on the record.
Yeah, Mike, I heard she's
Back on the record, yep.
Yeah.
Need a motion to,
Need a motion to reconvene?
Motion.
Second.
so who made the motion?
I'm out. You guys.
I think it was a tie.
So let's say, Ms. Peterson made the motion, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
We are now back into open session. We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Mrs. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero,
Yes.
Ms. Grignani,
Yes.
Mrs. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy.
Yes.
Have a great night, everybody. We're adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
For asking.